the things that make Ardbeg really quite unique are this really high phenol content that's what's ordered for the malt. So Ardbeg is looking for 55 parts per million phenol on the malt, which is the highest regular order that you'll get of any distillery in Scotland. But it's not just peat. It's the most important part of Ardbeg, I would say, but it's not just about peat. We mix this heavily smoked barley with water from Ugadal, our water source, and when we ferment it, we ferment in wooden fermenters, wooden washbacks. This gives it that kind of really funky, different texture that Ardbeg is famous for. And when we distill, we have a little copper purifier on our second distillation. What this means is it gives just a tiny little bit extra copper contact. It gives the spirit just the slightest little polish. And what that means is, as well as the smoke, you'll be able to find other flavours underneath the big smokiness when you taste your Ardbeg. So it has this kind of peaty paradox, as we call it. So probably the best one to go looking for this peaty paradox is with our most famous Ardbeg, which is Ardbeg 10. So for Ardbeg 10, we're taking that big, smoky, medicinal and salty spirit, all distilled on the south coast of Islay at Ardbeg, and we mature it for 10 years in ex-bourbon casks. So we use first fill, second fill and refill casks. What we're trying to do over those 10 years is absolutely we want our whiskey to be mature, but we still want it to be spirit-led. We still want every drink, every glass of 10-year-old to taste of Islay and of the distillery and of the sea and of the Atlantic and everything that sort of encapsulates that distillery. So that's this whiskey right here. So one of the many paradoxes with Ardbeg is, although it's a 10-year-old spirit and although it's really quite raw and rough and ready, appearances can be deceptive. It's very light, it has a very light colour. So that would normally, if I was doing this blind, I would expect something sweet and light and gentle. But if you get your nose in there, it's really completely different from that. That first initial rush of smoke, and by smoke I mean like wood smoke, like a burning fire. But also there's something along the lines of TCP, something medicinal, which again is coming from that peat that we use to dry our barley. Might even get a little bit of saltiness. Now, someone out there will be saying you can't smell salt, so what I mean is like sea air, like a sea breeze or seaweed on a rock, something like that. Take a little sip, see how those flavours change on the palate. So yeah, wow, still, if I have one word for Ardbeg 10, I always say it has this rawness. It's a raw Islay spirit. As well as the smoke, getting a little bit of, it's almost like, it's a mucky dram, as Michael Jackson once said, the whiskey writer says, I like my Ardbegs mucky. So it's kind of like mud and grass and like being outside in a field. It's also this almost like a warm tarmac road. There's these incredible flavours coming through of, again, more sea air, more iodine. Take another sip now. Start looking for the flavours that are not the smoke, these other flavours that are hidden inside Ardbeg. As your nose, as your palate adapts to the smoke, you can kind of fight your way through the smoke and find these other flavours that are lying almost hidden, but not fully. What you're really looking for is it's an acidity. There's a tartness, there's a sharpness in Ardbeg. I always think of limes. I always think of like really almost overripe limes, some sort of lime juice that's in there that really just plays, contrasts and complements all those big smoky flavours of Ardbeg 10. It's bottled at 46%, which means it's non-chill filtered, and it's all natural. There's no spirit caramel added, so it's as natural as you can get with a whiskey. And at 46%, I think it is absolutely perfect to drink. But if you add some water, you're going to get an initial burst of smoke. The smoke's going to go even higher. But again, as the whiskey kind of opens up and adapts, you'll maybe find it a little easier to find that lime citrus acidity that I talk about if you haven't found it at full strength.